Chapter 338, The Experienced Klein. After hearing Audrey's affirmation, Lady Norma laughed. What an honest child. I happen to know some experts in mysticism who are very knowledgeable. Would you like to chat with them? Definitely, that's exactly what I want, praised the lady. Feigning surprise, Audrey drew a crimson moon on her chest. With a smile on her face, Madame Norma nodded slightly and said, "How about we have our afternoon tea together tomorrow?" No problem. Audrey's excited eyes held a little innocence. After she bade Lady Norma farewell and headed for the living room, her smile gradually settled as her bearing turned composed and relaxed. The detailed changes in her body language, the color of her emotions, and the changes in her body of heart and mind that were reflected superficially, they all imply that she holds no ill intentions, but she was rather nervous. It seems like Lady Norma might really be a member of the psychology alchemists. She had been observing my expression and actions, but she couldn't adjust or hide her emotions. Maybe she's like Susie, a spectator, but unfortunately, she didn't know that the person in front of her is a telepathist. Audrey thought, feeling both perturbed and proud. She couldn't help but let her feet gracefully walk in a straight line, with one foot taking the place of the other. In the house of Isengard Stanton, situated in Hillston Borough. Klein's lips quivered a few times, but in the end, he didn't ask Stuart who his employer was or what he looked like. He decided not to get involved in matters involving Emlyn White as best as he could. Although based on Emlyn's words, he was a law-abiding vampire, but that was only limited to his claims. There were still too many gaps about his earlier life for Klein to be sure that he had not harmed the innocent. As a result, he lacked the motivation to seek out Father Otravsky to save Emlyn. After all, Father Otravsky was a Dawn Paladin who was skilled in combat and had the aid of mystical items. Furthermore, he was an unweakened Dawn Paladin. Besides, it would make it easy for him to expose his true identity to Father Otravsky and Emlyn White. Let's hope that he can gain the approval of that powerful priest as soon as possible and finish the sentence to be let out on parole. In his heart, Klein tapped 4 times in a clockwise fashion for Emlyn White. After the bounty was divided, the detectives took their leave, and Klein was given the best treatment. He was walked out the door by the great Detective Isengard. Holding his pipe, Isengard coughed lightly and said, "There are still some suspicious points about the serial murder case that we haven't fully understood. There might be an even more ferocious guy hiding behind the killer's back. You must be careful not to spread the word that you played an important role in this case." It seems like the official Beyonders also suspect that the gigantic devil dog has an owner. Klein replied solemnly, "I know, I had my own guesses about this too. Mr. Stanton, you have to be careful as well. You were the one who gathered us, and you're a major partner of the police." Isengard put the pipe into his mouth, then he took it out and said, "Sherlock, I guess I'll call you Sherlock. You can rest assured that, although I'm no longer young, I'm still an outstanding fighter, an excellent marksman with an instinctive vigilance. Furthermore, you have a high probability of being a beyonder, not from the low sequences. I just wonder which pathway you belong to." Klein thought for a moment and said, "Mr. Stanton, you don't seem to be a native from Backland. Your accent is closer to that of Civilaus." "Yes, just like your Midseashire accent," Isengard admitted frankly. The two detectives smiled at each other as an acknowledgement of the other's observational ability. Klein returned to 15 Minsk Street before nightfall. "Well, I now have £1,224 in notes, plus 5 gold coins and a small amount of change. This is quite a considerable amount compared to how much I had when I first came to Backland. However, Sequence 6 Beyonder ingredients will cost at least 1,500 a pop. Sometimes, because they're scarce and rare, the price might even increase severalfold. And Beyonders who can obtain such items usually aren't low in sequence. They wouldn't misjudge its value and sell it at a low price. It's quite impossible to pick it up at bargain prices." Although the lady with the artisan behind her is very eager for the Black Emperor potion formulas, she has to consider the progress of her advancement. For her to only be at Sequence 9, it's quite impossible for her to spend a large amount of money to buy the formulas up to Sequence 6 in advance, unless she's filthy rich. Well, You can't always be so exploitative. While in thought, Klein was in no hurry to prepare dinner. Instead, he went back to his bedroom, drew the curtains, and went above the gray fog. He had an idea that he needed to verify. Sitting in the fool's seat, he stretched out his hand and picked up the unadorned brass master key. Based on the notebook he read last night from an Abraham descendant, he guessed that the man had lost control on the spot because of his choice of advancing during the full moon. Therefore, the curse-like ability of the master key, which can make people go lost, only to find themselves in bad spots, has a high probability of being contaminated by Mr. Door's illusory ravings, other than the resentment and indignation in the beyonder characteristic. So what sort of changes will it undergo when the moon is full? Klein mumbled. Conjuring a pen and paper, he wrote the divination statement he had thought long in advance, what it manifests during the full moon. Holding the piece of paper in one hand and the master key in the other, Klein leaned back in his chair, gave a self-deprecating laugh, and said, "I'm courting death again. But there shouldn't be too much danger this time. Mr. Door is far separated from the real world. He's lost in the depths of the darkness. Furthermore, I have the gray fog to shield me." In this case, the danger from divination was no different from direct divination. The experienced Klein half closed his eyes, and his pupils turning dark as he constantly chanted, what it manifests during the full moon. After 7 times, Klein fell into a dream. In that gray, detached, illusory world, he once again saw the basement where the Abraham descendant had died. The flesh and blood here had long since dried up. The silver pocket watch inlaid with diamonds and the ancient-looking master key had yet to be stolen. They were still lying on the ground. Suddenly, a sharp, hollow voice echoed in Klein's ears. It was like a thin needle stabbing into his head, extending inside, bit by bit, while it scraped as if it was going to completely peel off his scalp. This extreme pain caused Klein to wake up and sit up straight. He looked at the blue veins protruding on the back before they quickly restored to normal. It's much more manageable than spying on the eternal blazing sun or secretly listening to the true creator's angry roars. Klein went from pressing down his fingers to wrapping them as he thought. Of course, if this were the outside world, he believed that he absolutely wouldn't have had such a reaction. If Miss Magician had always been listening to such pleas, she would have long lost control. From the looks of it, due to the resulting curse, the master key makes the voice even clearer. That's not right. Father Atravsky has likely survived the night of the blood moon with the master key in hand. He clearly wasn't affected. Perhaps he had stored the master key in his bedroom and stayed in the hall outside for confession. As long as one makes contact with the master key, they will hear the pleas during the full moon. Phew, before becoming a high-sequence beyonder, I wouldn't dare listen to it in the real world. What I heard just now seemed to be requesting assistance in ancient Hermes. Klein carefully recalled and confirmed what he had heard. With regards to this, the only thing he could do was twitch the corner of his mouth. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This is really a death-styled plea in the true meaning of the phrase. It's a pity. If only we could make those people from the Rose School of Thought hear Mr. Door's plea for help on the night of the full moon. With their already cold, warped personalities, they would definitely explode one after the another. After carefully considering if there was any way to achieve this goal, Klein returned to the real world, and according to his plan, he enjoyed dinner, changed his clothes, and left the house. He made 2 transfers and arrived outside the Bravehearts bar. He only circled it once without ordering any alcohol before leaving. While doing so, he noticed that Kaspar's was back again. After walking a block, Klein specially got on a rental carriage and made the driver head to Sherwood Borough. An illusory figure appeared in front of him just as the horse moved forward. It was Miss Sharon, wearing a long black regal dress. "Are you done with your preparations?" Sharon asked coldly. The soft black cap on her head was firmly pressed against her light blonde hair. Coupled with her pale face, her exquisite facial features gave her the beauty of a doll. Klein answered frankly, "Not yet. I'm still waiting for an item." Sharon said with unperturbed blue eyes, "I've prepared a mystical item. That's why you took the mission of being a 3-day bodyguard for £1,000. Back then, the item caught your eyes, but you lacked the money. Klein smiled in enlightenment. Don't be anxious. The more prepared we are, the greater the chance of success. Furthermore, I can usually use a mystical item from the Sun domain to make up for my shortcomings. Klein added in his heart. Seeing that Sharon had stopped talking, he said, I came here today to get you guys to help me in an experiment. What is it? Sharon asked simply. Klein said with a serious and trustworthy expression, according to Merrick's description, I think your curses are different. During the full moon, he has to endure the crazy desire for bloodlust which makes him unable to fight. As for you, you would enter a weakened state if you do not absorb the souls of humans. Is that right? Sharon listened quietly and nodded. Yes. I don't have any solution to your problem at the moment, but I think it's still possible to suppress Merrick's problem temporarily. For example, taking appropriate medicine and letting him be in a state where he doesn't have any emotions. That way, during that time, he won't be in pain and he will be able to participate in the battle. Klein expressed his thoughts. Sharon shook her head and said, it doesn't work. Such medicine is no longer effective against him. No longer, in other words, it had worked before. Klein thoughtfully asked, why? He had injected too much in the past. Even if he changed types, it'll only be effective for the first 3 to 4 times. We're unable to find any new types, Sharon said, suddenly turning silent, as though remembering something. Hearing her words, Klein immediately smiled. I have a different kind of sedative here, from that apothecary. Seeing that Sharon didn't say that this sedative was ineffective, he clasped his hands and continued, I'll give you one and let Merrick try it during the full moon. It's going to be a full moon tomorrow night. If it's effective, let him drink 2 or even 3 in one go before the battle. As for whether he would develop a resistance to the same medicine in the future, that's not something that needs to be considered right now. Klein thought calmly,